When I came to in the hospital, it felt like my whole body had been torn apart. My chest, my legs, even the skin around my eyes burned. But none of that compared to the ache I felt when I realized no one had reached out. Not a single missed call, no messages, no one pacing outside my room, not even my father. He showed up on the third day. I nearly broke down just seeing him. I thought maybe everything would finally feel okay. But he didn't ask how I was doing, didn't take my hand or sit beside me. He glanced around the room, let out a sigh, and said, "Do you still have that emergency stash? Camille's in a tight spot and really needs help." Something in me gave way at that moment. It wasn't a bone or a stitch. It was something harder to name, something I hadn't realized I was still holding on to because I had survived the accident. But what hit me then was the truth. My family hadn't seen me in years. That day had started like any other, just a regular Wednesday. I'd stayed behind at the office, trying to wrap up a final round of testing before release. The sky was already dimming by the time I finally headed out. All I could think about was the leftover stir-fry in my fridge and a long shower. I remember checking my mirrors at the light. I had the green. Then, brakes screaming, glass flying, a massive black pickup barreled through the red and slammed straight into my door. The actual crash, I don't remember. Just a jolt, a blur, and then nothing. Sirens, pressure in my chest, pain like I'd never imagined. I woke up later in a dim room, wires in my arms and a soft beep echoing nearby. They told me I'd blacked out from internal injuries. 3 ribs cracked, leg fractured, organ bruising. Honestly, it was a miracle I was still breathing. A nurse came in and asked who she should contact. I said, "My dad, Leonard Byrne." She gave a quiet nod and left. That was Wednesday night. Friday came and went. Still no word. Not even a message. I tried convincing myself maybe he was out of town. Maybe he hadn't gotten the call. Maybe there was some mix-up. That's what I kept telling myself. But on Saturday morning, my nurse came in and quietly mentioned she'd tried him again, and this time he picked up. I saw something shift in her face, like she was choosing her words carefully. "He said he's aware," she told me, then added, almost apologetically, "He didn't ask for more information, just said he's handling something else right now." That something else turned out to be my sister Camille's latest money crisis. I couldn't bring myself to eat after that, couldn't even cry. I just lay there, staring up at the tiles overhead, thinking about what it feels like to be slowly erased from your own family. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was caught somewhere between disbelief and emptiness. Lena showed up that afternoon, my college roommate, now a nurse in the same building. She was the only one who did. She brought along a stuffed animal, a scruffy little fox she said was ugly but dependable, just like her apparently. She fluffed my pillow, sat down beside me, and asked gently, "Your family knows you're here, right?" I didn't answer. I didn't have one. On the 4th day, right after the nurse helped change the bandages along my ribs, I heard footsteps coming down the hall. I figured it was Lena returning, but it wasn't. It was my father, Leonard Byrne, crisp button-up silver watch, phone still clutched in his hand like it might buzz any second. He looked like someone who had walked straight out of a conference call, not into his daughter's hospital room. I waited for some kind of wave to hit me, comfort, relief, anything. But nothing came, just a dull fog of confusion. He didn't hurry over, didn't lean in. He glanced around like he wasn't sure where to sit. "Hey," he said eventually, eyes landing on the IV in my arm. "You're up." "Yeah," I croaked, voice barely there after 4 days of silence. He gave a single nod. "Right, they told me." Then he pulled up the chair, adjusted his tie, and sat with a sigh, like he was settling in for a tense discussion, not a reunion. I could see it. He wasn't here for me, not really. After a pause, he finally said the words, "Camille's gotten herself into a bit of a mess." He started explaining that Camille had made some poor choices, something about her ex and a failed investment. Things had gone south fast, and now she was in a financial mess. She needed help, he said. I didn't respond. He kept going. You've always been the steady one. You've got a cushion, right? From your tech job? She just needs enough to stay afloat, get through the worst of it. His words hung in the air like fog, dense and absurd. I stared at him. There I was, lying in a hospital bed with stitches running across my torso and metal holding my leg together. And he was asking me to bail out Camille. For a second, I almost laughed, but it hurt too much to even breathe that deeply. I nearly died, Dad, I said quietly. And you're here talking about Camille's bills? He looked taken aback, like I was being dramatic. I care, of course I do, he said, as if it needed to be clarified. You were in a serious crash, but Camille's spiraling. You don't know what kind of pressure she's under. Oh, right, I said flatly. Just a cracked skull and internal bleeding here. But sure, let's focus on how tough things are for Camille. He blinked at me, clearly confused that I wasn't immediately offering to help. She's your sister, he snapped. You two used to be thick as thieves. No, I said, turning my head toward the window. I used to be the one cleaning up her messes. I couldn't look at him anymore. He stood a moment longer, then muttered something vague about letting me rest, and left the room. No, I'm glad you're okay. No, I was worried. Just Camille, always Camille. After he left, I stayed staring at the ceiling while the monitors clicked on steadily beside me. Nurses passed by the door, adjusting IVs, checking charts, but I barely noticed. The tightness in my chest wasn't just from the fractured ribs. It was something older, something I thought I'd grown out of. It wasn't just what he said that hollowed me out. It was the fact that I still expected something more. Even after all these years of being seen only when someone needed something from me. I kept hearing his words in my head, over and over. Camille's in a bit of trouble. You've always been the steady one. She just needs a little help. Like I was some kind of emergency fund they could withdraw from whenever Camille slipped up. Like surviving a crash somehow made me more available, not more in need of care. I thought about my savings, the account I'd built slowly over the past 10 years working in development. I wasn't wealthy, but I'd been careful. Month after month, budgeting tightly, skipping unnecessary splurges, putting off trips. All of it to build a future for myself. Not to dig Camille out of another one of her messes. And this wasn't the first time either. There's one moment I still remember with painful clarity. I was in high school, and I'd just been accepted into a highly selective robotics camp for the summer. The price was steep, but I'd secured a partial scholarship. I was proud, really proud. Then Camille got caught shoplifting. Suddenly, my parents grounded me. They took the money I'd earned tutoring after school and used it to smooth things over for her. They said it was a family emergency, that my opportunity could wait. It never came back. Later, in college, when Camille dropped out of her third-degree program, they called me, told me I needed to drive 6 hours to help her pack up her dorm, said they were too overwhelmed to go themselves. So I did it. I always did it, because for years I believed that being helpful might eventually mean I mattered, that if I was dependable enough, visible enough, maybe they'd finally treat me like I belonged. But lying there in that hospital bed, leg pinned with screws, I finally saw it for what it was. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a fallback plan, a walking solution, something to turn to when things got hard, but never someone they chose to care for. That evening, Lena stopped by again. She brought a container of soup and a phone charger I'd forgotten I needed. You doing all right? She asked, her voice gentle but steady. I didn't answer right away. Then I said it. No. But I think I'm finally done pretending I'm okay. Lena didn't try to fix it. She just nodded, sat down beside me, and stayed. No explanations, no small talk. And for the first time in years, I let someone stay without feeling like I had to earn it. The next morning, my father came back. This time, he didn't knock. Just pushed the door open like he owned the place. Coffee in one hand, not for me, and a manila folder tucked under the other arm. His expression was rigid, unreadable. I didn't bother to sit up. My leg was pulsing from a long, sleepless night, and I had nothing left to give. "I've been thinking," he began, skipping right past any greeting or concern. "Camille needs something to go right. She's in a tough spot, Leona, and if we don't get out in front of it, this could hang over her for years." I shut my eyes for a second. "We?" I asked. He didn't answer. I spoke to the attorney managing her case. He said if we move quickly on part of the repayment, we might be able to avoid it becoming public. Image matters, especially for young women. If we settle soon, I'm not giving her anything. The words left my mouth quiet but firm. No hesitation. He stopped. The change in him was small but obvious. The way his jaw clenched, the way his eyes focused harder. He hadn't seen that coming. Not from me. "I'm not saying give it away," he shot back, voice sharp. "It's a loan. You'll get it back." "No," I said again, this time without flinching. "You didn't come when I was in critical condition, Dad. No call, no message, nothing. And when you finally did show up, you didn't ask if I could walk again or breathe without pain. You asked me to help Camille. That's what you came for." He scoffed. "Don't exaggerate. You're fine, aren't you?" That was it. The moment something in me just broke. "I could have died," I said, louder now. "And you wouldn't have come any sooner. It wouldn't have changed a thing. You'd still be finding ways to save Camille. You'd mourn her for the rest of your life if it was her. For me, I'd just be a name you glanced over in the obituaries while checking court dates." He stepped back, not with guilt, just disbelief, like he couldn't recognize the person in front of him. "I'm not the one who abandoned this family," he said coldly. "You're letting your anger twist you into someone bitter." "No," I whispered. "Bitterness doesn't come out of nowhere. It grows when you spend your whole life being told that your value begins and ends with how useful you are to others." We sat in silence for a while after that. Then, in a voice lower than I'd ever heard from him, my father said, "If you let Camille go under, she won't be the only one we shut out." I met his eyes without blinking. "You already shut me out years ago. You just didn't realize it." He didn't reply, didn't even look back as he turned and left the room. But this time, I didn't collapse. I didn't feel hollow or desperate for his return. The silence that followed had a different weight, not heavy, just clear. He hadn't yelled when I refused, hadn't pleaded, he'd resorted to a threat. And in that moment, I understood that it was the only way he ever communicated with me. Not always in words. Sometimes it was quiet neglect, sometimes the crushing weight of unspoken expectations. But always the same message: if you don't give, you don't belong. I sank back into the pillows, letting it all settle. Years of being the backup plan, the afterthought. My body was still mending, but my thoughts were sharper than ever. I saw every memory with a new kind of clarity. Senior year came to mind. I'd been accepted to Landon University with a partial scholarship. It wasn't a full ride, but it was enough. I was ready to leave Oregon, to start fresh, to finally choose something for myself. Then Camille got pregnant. My parents sat me down, said I could defer for 1 year, just a year. They needed help, emotionally, financially, practically. So I stayed. I picked up shifts, helped with the baby, enrolled in community college classes at night. Camille, she broke up with the father, moved to a new city and got an apartment, paid for by our parents. I never ended up going to Landon. They told me I'd found my place here anyway. Said it like it was a compliment. Like sacrificing my dream was a sign of maturity. Then there was that Christmas. Camille took my car without asking. She was too drunk to drive hers. She wrecked it. And because she already had a DUI, my parents begged me to lie to the insurance company. "Leona, you don't want her record to be ruined, do you?" They covered the repairs, but they never repaired the trust they shattered in me. And now, all these years later, I was lying in a hospital bed, bones held together by screws, and they still didn't see me. Not as a person to care for, only someone to rely on when they were in trouble. To them, I was always just the reliable one, always available, always useful. Not once did anyone in my family thank me for what I gave up. Not once did they ask if I wanted to help. They just took, and I let them. Around midday, Lena stopped by again. This time she brought better soup, creamy tomato from the cafe downstairs. She took one look at my face and didn't press me for details. Just handed over the spoon and sat with me. That, I realized, is what care really looks like. Showing up without needing anything in return. Halfway through the bowl, I finally said it aloud. I think I'm done, Lena, done pretending this family actually loves me. She didn't blink, just reached out and gently held my hand. You don't owe anyone your pain, she said, and for the first time I didn't just hear it. I believed it. 3 days after I was discharged, I came back to my apartment. My crutches echoed against the stairwell walls with each step, and by the time I reached the last floor, I felt drained. I wanted nothing more than to sink into my couch, lose myself in bad TV, and pretend the world outside didn't exist. But waiting for me at the top of the stairs were my father and Camille. He was standing stiffly near my front door, holding yet another folder under his arm. She stood beside him in oversized sunglasses, clutching a luxury purse like it was the only thing anchoring her to the ground. They must have called the hospital to get my discharge time. No one had warned me they'd be here. Leona, my dad said casually, as if nothing had happened. We just need 5 minutes. I didn't move. I already said no. Camille stepped forward, voice trembling. That delicate, practiced tone she'd perfected years ago. I know I messed up, she said. I'm not proud of it, but I'm still your sister. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at her. Flawless, anxious, polished to perfection. The same girl who had taken and taken without ever once looking back. You didn't even visit, I said softly. Not once while I was in the hospital. Camille's expression faltered. Just for a second. Then the familiar mask slid into place, the hurt sister act she'd perfected since we were teenagers. We didn't know it was that serious, she said, voice wavering. Dad told us you were stable. Because I didn't ask, I replied. My father's voice sharpened immediately. Don't make this into some kind of moral lecture. Your sister's future is on the line. And mine wasn't, I snapped. You didn't even check if I'd be able to walk again. And now you're here, what, to plead? To pressure me? We're family, he said, jaw clenched. And family shows up when it matters. I almost laughed. Interesting. It only seems to matter when someone needs a favor. Camille started crying. I couldn't tell if it was real or just familiar theater. My father didn't comfort her. Instead, he took one more step forward and spoke with cold intensity. You really think having a job and some savings makes you better than us? That it gives you the right to walk away from your own sister? No, I said calmly. But it does give me the right to choose who I give my energy to. He opened his mouth, probably ready to toss out another ultimatum, but I lifted my phone. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. He froze. His face went blank, like I'd said something in a language he didn't speak. Then he turned to Camille and muttered, We're done here. They left without another word. I stood in place for a long time, phone still clutched in my hand, pulse racing. Part of me felt like I might collapse, but another part stood a little taller. This wasn't just the end of a visit. It was the end of a pattern. A door finally closed on decades of guilt. A few days later, it started with a Facebook post. Not mine, my cousin Elise's. We hadn't spoken in almost 7 years. We'd been close growing up, but lost touch after college. That morning, I woke up to a quiet notification, a private message waiting in my inbox. Hey, I hope this isn't out of line, but I heard something from your dad. He said you're refusing to help Camille because you're still hung up on old childhood stuff. Just wanted to check. Is everything okay? I stared at the message for a long time, unsure how to even begin responding. There was too much to explain. So instead of typing it out, I replied, "Can we talk?" We scheduled a call, and for the first time, I told someone outside of Lena the whole story. The crash, the days in the hospital, the silence, the visit, the pressure, all of it. When I finished, Elise didn't speak right away. Then she let out a breath and said, "Yeah, that sounds exactly like them." Turns out my parents had been quietly making their rounds, twisting the story to anyone who would listen. Rewriting the narrative. They told the family I was being cold, resentful, unwilling to forgive. That I was sitting on money while Camille's life was falling apart. All because I was clinging to childhood slights. They left out the part where they never showed up at the hospital. They left out the part where they asked for money like it was my responsibility, not a request. But here's what I didn't expect. People didn't buy it, not this time. Because apparently I wasn't the only one. Elise told me that last year, when Camille's startup was failing, she borrowed a large sum from our Aunt Rhea, thousands, with a promise to pay it back in 2 months. That repayment never came, and when Rhea finally brought it up, my father told everyone that she was the problem. That Rhea was jealous and holding a grudge. Soon after that, the family stopped inviting her to gatherings. Then, a day later, I got a message from another cousin I barely remembered. "I always wondered why your parents acted like you didn't exist. I saw it even when we were kids. I'm sorry I never said anything." That was the first line of the next message, one of many that started trickling into my inbox. And then came the one I never expected, a message from my Uncle Darren, my dad's younger brother. "Your father hasn't changed," he wrote. "He always shielded Camille. I walked away from all of it years ago. But you didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped playing along." The messages kept coming, one after another, stories, apologies, quiet acknowledgments. It was overwhelming, like a wave of voices I never knew I'd needed, each one saying, in their own way, "We see you now." I showed one to Lena. She smiled gently and said, "Told you, truth echoes." My parents never reached out again, at least not to me. But through a mutual acquaintance, I heard they were furious, not just upset, but humiliated. Their usual circles were starting to shrink. People were asking questions, challenging them. The version of events they'd carefully shaped for years was starting to unravel. They couldn't rewrite me as the villain anymore, not when the truth had legs of its own. As for Camille, she sent one message. "I hope you're happy. You ruined this family." I didn't reply. Because the truth is, I hadn't ruined anything. What they called a family was built on imbalance, on silence, on loyalty used like currency. One daughter at the center of everything, the other always in orbit. All I did was stop spinning. Later that week, Elise invited me to a small family barbecue. No parents, no Camille, just a handful of cousins, aunts, uncles, the ones who had stayed quiet for too long but wanted something better now. I almost declined, but then I remembered what Lena told me. You don't owe anyone your pain, but you do deserve connection. So I said yes. At the barbecue, Aunt Rhea pulled me into a hug so strong I thought I might pop a stitch. Uncle Darren manned the grill and, mid-flip, called me the bravest damn burn in the family. It wasn't a grand reunion, it wasn't some cinematic climax, but it was real. And as I sat on a folding chair under the sun, laughing with people who finally saw me, really saw me, I realized something I hadn't been sure of until then. I hadn't lost my family, I just finally found the part of it that knew how to love. It's been a month since then. Still no word from my parents, not a call, not a message. Camille's number is blocked now. There was a time when silence scared me, when the absence of noise felt like proof I'd done something wrong. But now, the quiet feels clean, clear, like oxygen I finally get to breathe. I've changed the locks on my apartment, updated my emergency contact form at the hospital. Lena's name is listed first now. I even removed my family name from my voicemail. It just says, "Hi, you've reached Leona, leave a message," because for the first time in my life, I'm not living in the shadow of being a burn. I'm just Leona. I started therapy recently. My therapist told me I've spent years surviving, navigating people who only knew how to offer affection when it benefited them. She helped me name something I'd been carrying without knowing what it was: emotional neglect. And once you name it, you can finally decide to set it down. Last week, I moved a portion of my savings into a new account, not for anyone else, not for emergencies, just for me. Trips, rest, maybe a solo week in a cabin somewhere deep in the pines. Quiet, but the kind I choose. Lena's planning a road trip and asked if I wanted to come along. This time, I didn't second-guess it. I said yes, I want to drive again, to take back the stretch of highway that almost ended my story, and remind myself that I'm still writing it, that I'm still choosing, still here. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd said yes, if I'd given in, transferred the money, suppressed the anger one more time, played the role they always expected of me. Would they have appreciated it? Probably not. Would they have respected me? Absolutely not. They would have taken it, like they always did, nodded politely and waited for the next disaster. But I didn't say yes, I said no, and that one word didn't make me heartless, it made me whole. Because love shouldn't hurt, family shouldn't require you to vanish, and being someone's daughter should never mean erasing yourself to meet their needs. So no, I'm not sorry, I'm not ashamed, I'm not theirs anymore, I'm mine.